Hello book nerds, I'm Aubrey.
And I'm Peyton.
And today we are going to be talking about our first Emily Henry book, The Happy Place.
Yes, so join us with a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets.
Alright guys, we are super excited to jump into this Emily Henry book. Just a little recap on what we're doing here for you guys to know. We are going to start off with a non-spoiler section. We're going to talk about what the book's about, give our initial thoughts, our star ratings, before jumping into all of the juicy details later in the video.
Okay, so Happy Place by Emily Henry
Yes.
follows our main character, Harriet. Not too sure how we feel about that name,
No.
but nonetheless, Harriet is a part of this amazing friend group that goes all the way back to college. And one day she gets hit up by her girl Sabrina, and she is asked to come to the cottage where they would spend a lot of summers together. And this is just overall Harriet's happy place. But the caveat here is that in that same friend group is her ex-fiance. So yeah, she shows up and there's a lot of forced proximity in this book and a lot of juiciness. And it just so happens that her ex-fiance is also part of that tight-knit group. So for this last hurrah, because the cottage is being sold, they are forced to be together. But another thing is that no one knows that they broke up. That he broke up with her. So
yes,
wow, this book is crazy. I love forced proximity in some contemporary romance. So this book was right up my alley. Yeah, the fake dating was just on par with this book. I don't want to say too much because the fun is getting into the juicy breakup deals. But yes. We can definitely jump into a star rating here to kind of see where we're at. What are you thinking?
Okay. So I will say this is the first Emily Henry book I've ever read, and I don't read a lot of contemporary romance. So when it started off, like the first chapter, I texted Peyton and I was like, I think I'm gonna hate this. Because I think it's a style choice made because the theme of the book is happy place, that each chapter starts with a description of a place. Like it's a very prosy way to get into it, and they're like a cottage, this bunch of little details before you get into anything. And I was just like, I don't know, I don't like this. I don't like the listing vibes of this. So I felt very negative about the book to start because it was just such a difference from what I was used to. I hate that Harriet's name's Harriet. Thankfully, it's a first person POV book, so you don't actually have to see the word Harriet that much, and you can just kind of forget that that's her name.
Until they call her Harry.
But after the initial jump scare of getting into contemporary romance, I actually did find myself really loving this book. I think it was around the 40-page mark where I was like, okay, no, this book is better than I thought it was going to be. Which I always have to get to the 40-page book mark for a book to see if I'm gonna like it or not. And then by the time I was 100 pages in, I was like, no, I really like this book. It's sectioned, since it's a week long of their vacation, it's sectioned between, it'll call real life, and then it'll say the day that it's on, Monday, Tuesday for the chapters, or there's flashbacks. And so having that formatting and watching the days pass, and it's inching closer and closer to shit's gonna hit the fan. It's a romance book. The ending, the last days are going to be the best.
Crazy.
And so I got super into it by the end. And I do think that this is a 5-star romance book. I would, if Goodreads gave 4.5 stars, which I base all my star ratings off of Goodreads, I would do 4.5, just because I felt uncomfortable a little bit at the beginning, but I'm blaming that on me not being a romance reader than Emily Henry.
You know what? We love, a queen that knows that maybe
self-aware queen.
Self-aware queen. Okay, so yes. This book, I have read one other Emily Henry book, which I hope we're going to be able to review at some point, and that's Book Lovers. And spoiler here, it wasn't my favorite read. Once again, I think that was a me thing. Yeah. What I like about Emily Henry, and I will agree, the first chapter I was like, do we have to explain everything? Mm-hmm. But Emily Henry's imagery is what makes her writing. She describes things in a way that like we just feel them.
Yeah.
And so I think that this book literally saved Emily Henry for me. I consumed this book. I loved this book. Yeah. I really enjoyed, the main Win, the love interest. Or the X one at that. I really loved the characters, and I will say, even in Book Lovers, I loved the characters, her way of kind of crafting that. This is a very character-driven book. So yeah, this is definitely 4 out of 5 for me. I would agree. There were those little points where I was like, no. But as the story goes on, and I love the dual timeline. I mean, I read this book in like 3 days. It was so good. So yes, definitely 4.5 out of 5 stars for this genre, for this book. Is it my favorite book? No. But I would recommend it to people. I do think you should read this book.
Yes, our hardcovers stamp of approval.
Stamp of approval. There it is. Okay, so this is our non-spoiler section.
Yes.
This is the end of it, okay? We are about to jump into a lot of fun, juicy details here. So if you haven't read the book or you don't want it spoiled for you, please stop watching and come back, and you can join us for our talk.
Yes. All right. The first thing we have to talk about is the fake dating plot. Fake dating is so much fun. Like, fake dating is the shit that I read about and like as a middle schooler on Wattpad. You know what I mean?
Yes, fake dating is
like the way that I loved when they went out to Roxy's, I think the first or second night, and she's like grinding on him,
sitting on his lap,
like, the hottest dress she can, and they have to pretend they're dating. So like you get all these excuses for them to be like lovey-dovey and like on each other without ruining like the tension, you know?
There are so many good scenes. Like even when they first see each other and she says like he hooked his arm around my waist and like kissed me.
Yeah.
And she's just like taken back because obviously we know he broke up with her, okay?
4-minute phone call.
4-minute phone call, and right away she's talking about like the ring they were shipping back and forth.
Yeah.
And and then they were given the like big, like we all know this. Like we've been on friend trips. Like you get the big suite, like my boyfriend and I always get the like twin bedroom.
Yeah.
That we like push the bed to. Like that's, and I totally understand how that would feel if you got like the big room.
You got the sex room. It is. They were like, you guys don't get to see each other that much. Have the sexy room with the bathroom with no door.
Yeah, and the shower that you can see right through.
Yeah.
And so that was just crazy to me. And she's basically like, I love when they're behind closed doors. She's like, what are you doing? And he like is so cool, calm, and collected kind of dude that's like, are we gonna tell them? She's like, no, because we find out that Sabrina and Parth are going to get married at the end of their week here.
Yes.
So
they don't want to ruin it.
They don't want to ruin it.
Hey, you want to get married because you believe in our love? Well, we broke up.
Yeah, they don't want to like, and also like when the flashback scenes were happening, and they started mingling, they even said like, you should never date within the friend group because you're going to destroy the friend group. And I think there's something so real about that. Mm-hmm. That's so true. Like,
Yeah.
that happens all the time where you fall for someone in your friend group and then the friend group is just torn apart when you guys break up. Like,
Yeah.
it's great if you guys stay together, but if you don't stay together, then it's like awkward.
I know. I dated someone in a friend group in high school, and it was horrible because it's a 3-month high school relationship. Broke up because he was a dirtbag, and then afterwards, I was like, oh, expecting my friends to like be my friends still, but they didn't want to stop hanging out with him, and I'm like, I actually don't want to see your face ever again. And so that you have to be, I had to be like, well, I guess I'll go find my own friends. So it's funny that like Harriet and Wynn, they're like, what if we just split half and half? What if we just split our time? And I'm like, okay, good luck.
Yeah, I think that's what's so interesting is switching over to like Emily Henry's really good at like pulling like real things like that.
Yeah.
Like even if I definitely want to come back to the intimate like fun stuff of like the whole fake dating. But like if we want to jump to like why they broke up, there wasn't this like she cheated, like, you know, we get in our fantasy stories, or even like Emily Henry's really just like, this is real life.
Yeah.
And it was just poor communication and a rough time in their lives. Like there was nothing like huge. Like Harriet wasn't good at expressing her feelings and being vulnerable, and Wynn was just grieving and feeling lost in his own place. Like that's why it didn't work out. It was a communication issue, which I think is so real in the real world.
Yeah.
Is people break up because of communication issues.
Yeah, because like, okay, the miscommunication trope is the worst thing in the world. But the way it played out in this book, it was like they both kind of wanted what was best for each other, which is why neither one of them really fought for the relationship, like fought for it to stay, because they were both trying to compromise everything they needed for the other person, or Harriet to like her own goals. You know, she'd spent all this time trying to be a doctor, and then like seeing her be like, oh no, I don't think I actually want this. Like, how could I disappoint my family and everything like that? Like, everything that Harriet went through was so fucking real. Like, that was just like gut punched.
Yeah, I just think that this book is so relatable to especially people, you know, who are like, this is the track I have laid for myself, and going against that's weird. And, you know, this breakup was hard and like stressful to see happen, but like it made sense.
Yeah.
And I think the way, of course, he went about it was wrong, but the reason for it necessarily, like, I don't know, it sucks though, because and this is what I like about the dual timeline kind of vibe, is that we were able to see her like now kind of hurt and grieving the loss of their relationship, but then also when times were good, like when they first met and he picked her up from the airport, like, oh my god, like, what? And he's like, I've seen you nude because of the painting in their apartment. And it's just so funny.
I love the second chance romance. The idea that, like, especially with a dual point of view, the fact that we got to see them, like you said, like, see them first meet, see all of that. Like, you get to, like, fall in love with him at that time, and then you also get to watch them, like, kind of re-fall in love with one another.
Yeah, rediscover each other. It was so much fun. Though I will say, like, my favorite, like, timeline was definitely the present, because you had that, like, anger and rage, because because in the past, like, you find out, like, how much they were integrated into each other's lives. Like, her meeting the parents and him meeting her parents and then being completely opposite. Like, that is so relevant. Like, that is so relatable to people and their, like, relationships. It's like, there's always the good family and the bad family. Not that the bad family is really bad. It just, there's different ways. I don't know. And she was able to find family in his family. And when when they saw each other and she asked about his mom right away. Yeah. Like that is something so relatable. Because it's like, just because he broke up with her doesn't mean, like, she also lost that family as well, especially since they were engaged.
They were engaged. Like, Harriet literally was like, they were like my mom and dad. Like, she mourned the loss of Hank too, which is another huge thing because, like, Win is like my like soulmate, and by that I just mean like he's the same person as me, so probably not the soulmate. But, like, he's just so like attached. He's such a family dude. He's like such a family guy. And so when Hank died and he's like mourning the loss of Hank, then Harriet was like, I feel like I can't show how sad I am because, like, it's nothing. Like, it's your dad, but, like, it was my dad. But, like, obviously, Win's going through it so much more. And so she just, like, kind of, like, bundles it all up.
Yeah, and I just, once again, this is such a relatable thing that happens all the time. And it isn't until they're like, dude, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
The week at the cottage that it comes out that she's like, well, I was hurting too, but, like, it's, you know, it's really your dad. Yeah. And I thought you just needed space. And in his head, he's like, I'm in this foreign city and you're living a life and I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah.
And, you know, finds out. But, oh my gosh, we can get off the sappy, sad stuff because and go kind of into this week when they go to Murder, She Wrote, or whatever the bookstore is called.
Yes.
Which, love that whole idea, by the way. And he, like, he buys that, like, really expensive coffee table book. And she's like, it's so funny, like, when people are in our lives so much, and we know the way they breathe, and the way they act, and their little mannerisms, and then you break up, and you see each other again, and they're doing things completely different than they did when you were together.
Yeah.
Like, spending money on a book that's really expensive. And she was so much like, what? Like, in her head, like, why do you do this?
And then she's
and it turns out...
Yeah. Well, first, before she figures out what it is, she's like, he has a girlfriend. There's a new bitch in his life. And that's... is that not the most relatable thing ever? To immediately be like, he moved on. He's happier. Like, what's the girl... her album's called The Good Witch. She has a song called I Think I Won the Breakup. Like, in that moment, Harriet is looking at Win and she's like, did you win the breakup?
Like, you're better than ever and I'm a mess.
Yeah.
Because he found his true happiness, we know, by his very flourishing furniture business.
Yeah.
And where he's making like 15 grand off of one table.
Honestly.
Like, and daddy is rich.
Yeah.
and it's just, oh my, like, I loved realizing that part where you're like, oh my gosh, like,
ooh, he has money.
He has money now. And so anyways, so that part was really fun. Their relationship it was kind of confusing, and it was this on purpose because when they would kiss and fake, it was also just like real too.
Yeah. Like, yeah, the whole time, like, they were so clearly not over each other. And so, like, they'd be like, yeah, we have to stay broken up. But it kind of twisted over the days to be something where, like, but we can be together this week.
Yeah, it's like, well, just this week we can be together. And I love, the one night when she got really drunk and she was doing, like, body shots.
Yes.
And she woke up in that rodeo t-shirt. And we know, like, if you have a boyfriend or, like, a husband or fiance, like, you know, like,
yes,
there are those t-shirts you wear of his that you're just like, oh, this is just, like, waking up, like, pantsless and, like, a big t-shirt. Yeah. Like, that was something in their relationship that only the two of them would know about. And the fact that she was, like, drunk asking for the rodeo t-shirt and he knew to bring it.
He was like, oh, what? And he was like, I got you, baby. Like yeah, I remembered it. I was like,
And she woke up and it was so cute also because, like, he respected her space and, like, slept on the floor. And until, like, I think it was Sabrina. It's always Sabrina.
Yeah.
It's like knocking on the door and he like hops in the bed quick.
Speaking of, it's always Sabrina.
Yeah.
Jumping to the end real quick, we find out that Sabrina knew they were broken up the whole time. Her and Parth knew and set the whole thing up so that trying to get them to be back together. Like, it's always Sabrina because she literally was like, I'm gonna stir the pot.
The thing is that there's always a Sabrina in a friend group.
Yes.
That's like, well, we can just make this better and we can make them love each other again.
Mm-hmm.
And when her, Cleo, and Harriet are like having that like the big blow up, the heart to heart they've been needing for many years now.
The third act breakup being between the friends and not really between her and Win is amazing.
Yes, and I think that was like such like a full circle. And Emily, even in Book Lovers, this happened too, where you're just like, whoa, like this main character is going through such a like transformation, and it's always in like a week. And I love that this book took place over a week, like and we were able to like every day, and every day it was like Wednesday, like, oh my god, it's already Wednesday. It's like a vacation. You're like, oh, it's already Thursday. We only have like 3 more days here. And so that was really, really just like a fun thing to play along with. But yeah, we see like Cleo like kind of bitches about Sabrina to Harriet's like the chill friend that like is never really in the drama because she lives on one, the other side of the country, and two, she's like the person that kind of excludes herself to a fault on things. I mean, think about this. Even in college, like she was the one to study abroad. She was the one to move to San Francisco. Like, she's always just kind of been not necessarily. And for her, she was even saying at some point in the book that she never really made friends in high school. So she was forced herself to make friends in college. So I love when Cleo like
herself in it.
Exactly. And I love when Cleo is like bitching about Sabrina, and then Sabrina is like talking about Cleo and Harriet's like, but I do love Cleo and Harriet's relationship. Yeah. Because Sabrina can be too much sometimes, which we find out she has to be to keep the friend group together, which I also kind of relate to because it's like that friend that's always the one to make the plans. Once again, Emily Henry being relatable. Yes. The friend that always has to make the plans to make sure everyone's happy, make sure everyone's comfortable, like make sure dietary restrictions are met. Like there's like there she was making like vegetarian tacos and like, you know, like there's always that one person that's like, why am I always the one that has to do this? Like, do you guys even want to be here?
Exactly.
And so that every character has its own like little thing. And I love that.
Yeah. They were all so well developed.
Yes, she is Emily Henry is a master at curating characters that kind of jump off the page. Now, I will say, other than some character attributes, I do feel like her main, like, male interests, like, romance interests, they're always kind of the same. But you can make that argument for, like, fantasy books. Like, the main guy is always, like, tall, dark, and brunette. Yeah. And, you know, so it is interesting now reading 2 of her books. But
that's how I feel about Colleen Hoover. I feel like all of her main characters have the exact same voice. Like, Colleen Hoover has a strong voice, but, like, after reading a few of her books, you're like, okay, this is Colleen Hoover's voice. This isn't the main character's voice.
Exactly. Yeah. So I do think that, but I love Wyndham. Yeah. I love Wyn so much. I wish I could read more of him. He is such a heartthrob. And he works with his hands. And he lives in Montana.
I have a quote I want to share of Wyn's. Yes. I read this and I like started crying. So this is really early in on the book. It's on page 68. It's when they're talking about like what they do in another life. Like if they had another life, who they think they would be. Oh, yes. And he goes, because in this life, I decided not to stay. I decided to do something different than my parents did, be someone different. But if I had to live But if I had another one to live, I'd want the one where I stayed too. And as a girl who moved away from home and does not really is living a very different life than the rest of her family, like that hit me like a truck. Like this idea of like in this life, I chose to do something different than my parents, but if I had another one, I would want the one where I stayed. That like crushed me inside.
No, it's true. Like, also, like, I moved away from home, and there is this sort of like, oh, like, what would happen? Would I be happier if I stayed? Especially if you're a family person, and like, when his life is his family.
Yeah.
He's super close with his sisters. I mean, his dad and his mom, like, I want them to be my mom and dad. Like, they just seem so freaking cool. And they remind me of my parents to like a certain extent too, where I was like, oh, there's nothing better than home. But yeah, I mean, so that's a really great quote. That's once again so relatable.
Good job, Emily Henry.
Book. So relatable. Let's get into the ending kind of this book. A lot happens. They do that like lobster fest sort of thing. And there's this funny part where they're like, all right, they were like hiking somewhere or something, and Wynn's just like, we need to have sex. Like, I need to smash you.
Yes.
And he's like, we can either talk about this or we can get in the back of the car and smash.
Yes. I have a quote I want to share of Wynn's. Yes. I read this and I like started crying. So this is really early in on the book. It's on page 68. It's when they're talking about like what they do in another life. Like if they had another life, who they think they would be.
Oh, yes.
And he goes, because in this life, I decided not to stay. I decided to do something different than my parents did, be someone different. But if I had another one to live, I'd want the one where I stayed too. And as a girl who moved away from home and does not really is living a very different life than the rest of her family, like that hit me like a truck. Like this idea of like in this life, I chose to do something different than my parents, but if I had another one, I would want the one where I stayed. That like crushed me inside.
The shower to the house, because there's a lot of times this shower is brought up, and I'm sure it's far away from the house, but like it is interesting that like,
isn't it a part of the in-law quarter? Like it's like a separate house, but it's on the property. And also Cleo and Kimmy spent a night there. Like I think we're like sleeping in the house around the same time that they were like half fucking in the shower. The outdoor shower.
It's like so weird. Second thing, this is like the one part that really cringed me out, was when he was like, I need a condom. I need a condom. Like, it's a book, okay? You don't need a condom, okay? You don't have to be that relatable. But he's just like, I know it's trying to give way to like, they're still broken up, blah, blah, blah. Like, they need to be careful. But he's just like, she's like, what? You don't, like, okay. He's like, well, I'll run out and get one tonight, like a little kid would. Like when you're in high school, like, I'll do it tonight. Just keep being horny until then. Like, it's like, just like so weird.
I agree, because I mean, I feel like Emily Henry was using that as a way to like stop them from having sex. So yeah, you know what I mean, like making it last longer.
Yeah.
But like it could have been done differently, because I'm also like, aren't you on birth control? Like I feel like if you're that horny, I mean maybe.
And she's a doctor.
You don't want to promote like unsafe sex, but I feel like she's probably on birth control. So like that and the little pull-out method, like I feel like you would have been fine, and we don't need to hear you
it was just, like so cringy.
Or she could have had a condom.
Yeah, and then also, which I get, and also you could be like, well, that shows that he hasn't been dating. Yeah. Because he doesn't have one, and whatever. But to me, I was like, that is so cringy. Like, I did not like that part. I was like,
And if you know you're spending a week with your ex-fiance that you're still in love with, like, I would still shave everything. And if I was a dude, I'd still bring my condom.
Yeah, you just gotta be prepared.
Just saying.
So, yeah, that was, like, kind of cringe for me. But, like, the whole shower part was, you know, but it's just, like, the logistics.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the wine cellar. Like, oh, you forgot to leave the door open and now you're stuck in the wine cellar. Like, let's just add to this, like, forced proximity trope even more. That now you were stuck in the wine cellar until just, you know, and that happens to be where y'all had your first, like, moment.
Yeah.
So it's just...
I did love the sardine, like, hiding and, like, making out. Like, if you've played sardines, especially with a guy you like, you know that that's everyone's dream, to get stuck hiding in there first, and, like, touch of a hand. Like, I can see myself, like, in high school playing sardines, and then you're, like, holding hands, and it's dark, so there's other people, and they can't tell, like, that kind of thing. But yeah, there were definitely moments where you're like, no, like, I can see, like, Emily's hand in this. I can see that, like, someone wrote this book, and it's like too perfect for them to, like, ended up exactly in that situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
My cover all would be that Sabrina did it on purpose because she was trying to get them together. So, like, you can, it's like a plot hole, but, like, you're putting a band-aid on it and being like, Sabrina did it on purpose.
Yeah. No, but I will say, like, this book, sometimes I'd be reading and I forgot that I was, like, reading. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I think that pays, you know, like, kind of respect to her writing. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm reading right now. Like, that's crazy. These people are fake. I'm not just, like, watching it in real life. So that was really fun. So yeah, the shower thing was interesting. And then later when they finally do smash, he's like, I have the condoms. He's like, I got it. Pharmacy. I got it. I was like, okay, Win, sure.
Okay.
But let's, like, jump to the ending here. Yes. I love when he, like, walks into the pottery store and she's just, like, making her love, and she, like, kind of shows him, and so like, that was super cute. And then also we already kind of covered the girls. Like, Sabrina's, like, at the chapel her parents got married at. That was really weird.
I thought she was gonna get married there. Like, I thought we were like leading up, because it was all about how, like, she didn't have a bunch of stuff planned. I was like, oh, now we're gonna see that we can get married at this chapel, which was so beautiful, and then still did the reception, and then they didn't, which is fine, but, like, missed opportunity. Or
part of me, like, 25% of me thought that they were gonna do a switcheroo where Win and Harriet were gonna get married instead.
A Mamma Mia.
Because I've seen that. It's like you know, the Mamma Mia. That should be its own trope at this point. But yeah, so that I thought was a possibility. But I loved, like, this is how I want to get married. Like, just at a cottage, cabin, whatever. Yeah. And, like, you're all, like, just in your fancy outfits by the pool, swimming, stuff like that. Like, I love that idea. Especially since everyone knew that, like, they broke up.
Yeah.
So then anything there was just genuine. So yeah, so that was really interesting. But those are really great, and I could talk about those forever. I do want to talk about the ending and how we both felt about the final sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I have a controversial sort of thing.
Okay.
I love how it ended.
Okay.
Because I do think they're meant to be together. But part of me, just for the gut punch, wanted them to just carry on with their lives. Her finish her neurosurgeon stuff, and then in the future get together. I do think I would want them in long term together, but something about her just, like, them just leaving, and that gut punch, and then do like a wait, is it called an epilogue?
Yes.
Okay, I almost called it a prologue. And then and then in the epilogue, doing something funny where, like, 15 years later.
Yeah.
Or something.
Mm-hmm.
She sends him like pottery or something, or he was talking about making her something.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. Like 5 years later, he like sends her something, and then their like connections rekindled or whatever. I don't know. But part of me kind of wanted the gut punch, but I do love the whole chase scene. Like, I'm going to the airport to catch you, and that. And she moves to Montana, and she has to disappoint her parents, and part of me thinks that's like a full growth journey because she had to go through that cathartic journey of upsetting her parents and being okay with it, because Harriet has a hard time doing that.
Yeah. I think I would have preferred not to have the airport thing. I just I don't know, I feel like it's just been so overdone, and I feel like it would have made more sense if just that night, as the fireworks are going off or something like that last night, they just would have done the big confessional, and Harriet just be like, hey, this isn't my dream, I want to think of just what I want, everything that they said still.
That's true.
And I still think it was by the point that we got to there, it was clear that Harriet didn't enjoy her job.
Yes. No, and that's true. I would say that.
But I just was I don't know. It could have just happened a little bit earlier, and then I would have loved to see them do that and then be making out, and then the other friend group be I would have loved to see a moment where Sabrina's oh wait, so my plan worked, and be I guess it was right after all, a cheeky moment like that. I think that seeing it together with the friends could have been a better ending.
The whole friend thing.
And end at the airport, but Wynn is just dropping her off, and she's gonna fly back to San Francisco to quit her job, gather her stuff, go visit her parents, and then she'll meet him in Montana.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing that would have been cool if she did gave the confession I hate my job, which I totally respect.
Yeah.
And then she's kind of waiting for him to say then quit. Come with me, but he doesn't. So he has to do kind of the chase scene. But the epilogue is her getting ready for her shift, and she opens the door and he's standing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be really cool too. So there's a lot of different ways this book could have ended.
Yeah.
As
long as they're together. This is a romance book. I am reading it for that HEA. You know what I mean?
Yes, me too. Okay, so thank you for watching with us today.
Yes.
I was sure in my happy place while reading this book.
Yeah.
What do you think about Emily Henry? Should we, wink wink, maybe do another book review of hers? What did you also think of Happy Place if you have read it? I hope you have, because we just spoiled the whole dang thing for you. Let us know, of course, what to review next.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading.
Happy reading.